Bert Snaith. June the 20th, 1905. Born in the army as a baby. My parents being Salvation Army officers. For 19 years I moved all around the country, north, south, east and west. My parents being corps officers, and I spent 3 years in London as well, till I was 19. Well, it was very awkward. In different places the standards was different. One lower than the other and one higher than the other. But I managed all right. Yes, I was in the junior band first, and then in the senior band. I remember the First World War. We was living in Manchester at the time. I played in the old Crystal Palace in London, in front of 3,000 people, and Mrs. General Bramwell Booth was the chairman. That was a big occasion. We was holding an open air meeting. Halfway through, a party of German prisoners came marching down the street. Of course, I was a young boy of 11, and I wondered really what was going to happen. But they formed a ring round, and my father was the officer in charge, was in charge of the open air meeting, and he said, "Is there anybody who would like to give a word of testimony?" Without any exaggeration at all, this German general got into the middle of the ring and gave a marvellous testimony. He was a German Salvationist.
Good heavens.
That was very surprising. This was at Sudbury, you see. Most of the men had been called up to the war, and I was able to play as a boy of 11, so I played in the senior band. And then when we moved to Oldham, I had to go back into the junior band because there was a good senior band there. I played in 10 different bands all around the country. In 1938, I married Marjorie Hodge. My father married us. We had one son, Robert. He lives at Penn. He does quite a good service for the churches. He's a very good preacher. But he lives at Penn, Wolverhampton. She was the organist for the Songster Brigade, that's the choir, for 45 years, and for the corps over 70 years. On the organ. Well, the old trams was running at that time.
Yeah.
But I did a big service during the war. The Ministry of Food called on me, "Could you stock food for the Ministry of Food? It's been destroyed at Cardiff docks. If you will have the authority to take over any buildings in Cradley Heath." So I said, "Yes, I will." And a fortnight after, there was a phone call to say that there was a truckload of 14 truckloads of food, tin food, coming to Cradley Heath. So I had to go down to the Labour Exchange. I said, "I want 10 strong men to unload this food." And I took over the Cradley Heath market. He didn't like it at all, but I said, "I've got the authority to do it." And there was 8,000 cases of tin fish and meat and everything stocked there. And I was responsible for all this. And then we took over a garage and filled that with jam and I don't know what. This was all for the Ministry of Food. And took over another building and filled that with the American dried milk. Big barrels, 160 barrels of dried milk. And I was responsible for all this. I'd got the keys to all this. So I did my bit during the war.
Yes.
And after it had been taken away, 5 years after, the concrete floor had gone down 6 inches with the weight of the market. It had only been walked on before. Of course, the crowds of people used to stand on the footpath and see all this food going into the market. I said, "It's not for you, missus." They kept saying, "Oh, we'll be all right, we'll be all right." So I did my bit during the war. I had my medical, but I was exempt because of all this.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it. I served under 26 corps officers as corps secretary. Of course, they used to move more frequently in the olden days than they do now, but I served 26 corps officers as corps secretary. Oh, that was an extra job. I was a commercial traveller. Cradley Heath Band in 1904 went to the founder's funeral in London. I've seen pictures of that, so I saw them marching by. For the general's funeral, they went all the way to London. It's gone down quite a lot. There was 40 strong when I was in the band. Yeah. I can't see close up. If I could see all right, I should be playing now. But I can't see close up. I can see the distance. But I can't even see to write my own name. I've got to do it unconsciously.
Gosh.
It's affecting my eyes.
Yeah.
It's an old age, really. I was the deputy songster leader for 18 years. That's the choir under songster leader Lucas, Frank Lucas. I was the deputy songster leader as well as the corps secretary. I got 2 sisters. One is a retired brigadier, and they both live in Sheffield. She's not very well, but she'll be 96. But she's a retired brigadier. She travelled the country as an officer. And then I've got another sister in Sheffield, 89. She looks after her. And I've got a brother in Birmingham, it's 90. So there's the 4 of us, and we're still going strong. But I don't know how my mother managed. In those days, you know, there was no guaranteed ration books. She had to queue up for what she could get hold of for 4 of us, as well as the father. He was 16 stone and 6'2". During the war, they was in Sheffield, and there was a raid on Sheffield, and it hit near where my father was, and my father was down the cellar. They took the top of the house off, and he was down the cellar for 9 hours, and he caught pneumonia, and he died in somebody else's house. And during the war, we never missed a meeting. We blacked out every window, and we had a false lobby put on the front door, so people had to walk through the side, and we never missed a meeting. And when the army first came to Cradley Heath, there was over 300 people at the 7 o'clock service in the Sunday morning. There used to be a whole theatre down Cradley Heath at that time. The citadel hadn't been built then. When the Sunday school procession was on, it was the full length of Cradley Heath. They had a scout band of 60 and a girl guide band, junior band, senior band. They got everything at Cradley Heath at that time. I suppose one of the leading corps in the whole of in the whole of England. We had the general here during the 1945. 1944, the war was still on. General Carpenter. We went to Woolwich for the Sunday, and I was in charge of the open air meeting. And the open air meeting was outside the officers' quarters, see? And halfway through this open air, the officer came out and he threw his cap in the air. He says, "Praise the Lord, a little girl's arrived," while we was there. And this girl turned out to be one of the famous trombone players in the Alley Orchestra. And she came to Cradley Heath and I reminded her of it. She said, "Don't tell everybody how old I am, will you?"